shaming. So it's no question that public shaming has been a part of American history for a long time. You might even be able to argue that it has become sort of a social tradition in American society. For a period of time, public humiliation was actually a common form of punishment for crimes. But hey, it's 2018 and it's almost 2019. Obviously, we don't have people being tarred and feathered like in the colonial days, but the idea and the act of public shaming is still practiced to this day in many shapes and forms. And that leads me to a question that has emerged in recent discussion and will be my topic for today. And that is public shaming really necessary in modern American society? But before I jump back into public shaming, I want to talk a little bit more about shaming in general and the ideology behind it. So I personally believe that public shaming is integral in the teaching of right from wrong. In a very simple nutshell, it is making an individual feel ashamed enough while placing responsibility and pressure on them to fix their mistakes or fix their wrongful actions. Growing up, my parents would deal with my bad behavior by essentially shaming me. They would sit me down and they would tell me what you did was wrong, it was bad, and you shouldn't have done that. Of course, with a little more anger in their tone, maybe a little bit of yelling, but it went along the lines of that. Saying that out loud, saying that they shamed me, does not sound good. It might even sound concerning, but what was more important to me was what came after the shaming. My parents didn't just leave me and expect me to figure out how to correct my behavior on my own. After we both calmed down, they would come back and discuss with me what I could have done differently, the steps I can take to fix my mistakes or fix my behavior, and most importantly, they reassured me that I had the potential to change my behavior. So, shaming doesn't make the target feel positive. It has no purpose in doing so. Instead, it singles out their wrongful action and places them in sort of a hot seat of shame. For some, it was quite literally like sitting in the timeout corner. But I believe that shaming can bring a positive impact if it is custom to the individual, it doesn't harm the subject mentally or physically, and it is followed up with guidance, that is positive reinforcement, or like my parents, treating it as an intervention so that they can reintegrate into society with a new mindset. Melissa Kirk, who has worked with psychology writers for 15 years, explains, "So the reason that shame works so well is because we're wired to connect to and seek acceptance from others, and shame effectively withdraws that acceptance and connection. So essentially, we feel the need to correct our actions to fit in. But the thing is, even then, shaming doesn't really have established rules or limits. There's no golden rule or golden standard when shaming another person. With the lack of mediating, shaming can quickly spiral out of control, way beyond just a simple lesson. And this brings us back to public shaming. The problem of having no limits or no rules in shaming in general is made more apparent when the shaming escalates to the point where it is made public for the world to see and potentially join in. It can quickly gain power in numbers, and with that, even harmful motivation in the form of mob justice. That is, we are right, you are wrong, thus it is our duty to make that clear. From here, shaming can become quickly and very easily malicious. What was once a shaming towards a person's wrongful actions can quickly transform into an attack on the person's whole existence. For example, in Monica Lewinsky's recount of the political scandal she was involved in, she explains the extent of public shaming she received when the news broke. She said that alongside the hate, she was referred to by crude names and commonly, that woman. I quote, "I was seen by many, but truly known by few. And I get it. It was easy to forget that woman was dimensional, had a soul, and was once unbroken. With constant berating, the person being shamed can be dehumanized fairly quickly in the eyes of the public. In addition, even if the intention was to help the individual improve, the mass public shaming does not provide for proper counseling. All individuals handle shame differently. Some may actually respond to the shame and choose to change their behavior for the better, or ignore the shame and become indifferent to it, or even worse, hide in fear and not do anything for fear of the outcome of their next move." Peter Stearns, a professor of history at George Mason University, states, "We certainly seem to have lost the knack of helping people recover from shame and become reintegrated into the community. With all things considered, I believe that this level of shaming the act of public shaming is not necessary in American society today. I believe that shaming can bring improvement to an individual's behavior only if it is in sort of a controlled intervention targeted towards reintegration into society, not so much a public display of a target for a mob to attack or go against. Why this issue is important is that more troubling in the age of advancing technology, public shaming has been made more accessible and even tempting online. In a nationally representative survey conducted by the Pew Research Center in 2017, 41% of Americans have been personally subjected to harassing behavior online, and 66% have witnessed these behaviors directed at others. The digital mob is able to become more hostile with the option of anonymity. The faceless internet can be very ruthless and at times, maybe even too intimidating to recover from. As Sue Sheff, author of Shame Nation, The Global Epidemic of Online Hate, points out, you are one single keystroke away from having your life destroyed. News travels really fast, especially online, and even worse, it can leave a permanent imprint in the online world. Once you post something, it is available for everyone to see, for people to save and re-upload if necessary. One's reputation is very, very vulnerable online. Rita Koganson, in her review of Jon Ronson's novel, explains that social media diminishes both the discomfort of seeing our victim suffering and the shame of being seen making him suffer. Online public shaming is a big problem and an issue that needs to be addressed. There is no reason to escalate shaming more than it needs to be. I urge you all to keep civil when seeing public shaming both in person and online. There are implications we may not be aware of in the moment, which could impact others in many ways we wouldn't expect.